Hey there, you awesome people. I hope your day has been nothing short of fantastic. Welcome back to a brand new episode of What If Deku ate the Gomu Gomu no Mi. Izuku used to be quirkless, but that all changed when he sunk his teeth into an unusual fruit, granting him the power to stretch his body like rubber. With this newfound ability, he's on a quest to become the ultimate hero. Don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description box down below. If you're totally vibing with this what if scenario, drop me a comment and let your thoughts be known. And while you're at it, don't miss out on other mind-blowing what ifs on this channel. Alright, without further ado, let's dive straight into this video. Tengai, I'm starting to have some fun, grinned Rappa as he rapped on the barrier with his fist. Get rid of this. Don't use it, since I don't need your barrier in the first place. Don't wallow in your own desires, scolded Tengai. Don't forget what Master Overhaul wants. This is an excellent matchup, since we'll win with our teamwork. Rappa replied with several punches to Tengai, who simply created another barrier within the barrier to protect himself, before complaining that this team was something that he was forced into doing. Tengai decided to allow Rappa free rein to both shut him up and deal with the threat of the hero, as they were holding the advantage. As a barrage of punches slammed into Fat Gum, he quickly tried to formulate a plan. Though Ijiro wasn't broken yet, the fact his guard had been blown away by a punch wasn't something to take lightly. Deciding on his plan, Fat Gum faced Rappa, taunting him to put all his attacks on him. Rappa eagerly agreed before sending another barrage of punches at Fat Gum. Don't disappoint me, fatty, shouted Rappa as his punches began to kick into higher gear. Stay on your feet, I'm just getting warmed up. Fat Gum could only grunt in pain as he kept tanking, absorbing all the hits and keeping it stockpiled within him. By doing so though, it ate up all his fat reserves, causing him to become skinnier by the second, losing his defense in exchange for an unmatched defense. However, his defense was being chipped away much too fast for him to properly attack back. Rappa, he's up to something, be careful, shouted Tengai, ignoring Ijiro, deeming him as someone inconsequential. Hurry up and finish it up. Come on, show me what you got, shouted Rappa, ripping through his mask in excitement as he launched a barrage of punches once more. Suddenly Ijiro came barging in between the two, once more in his unbreakable form. While Fat Gum was slightly surprised and Tengai was completely caught off guard, Rappa merely grinned widely as he felt his punches land on Ijiro, yet not blowing him away like the first time. Rappa could see it in Ijiro's eyes. This kid, he hasn't given up yet, grinned Rappa as he continued to wail away. He has seen eyes like Ijiro's back when he fought in the Underground Masquerade, an illegal underground fighting arena. Those who didn't give up despite being overpowered and continued to fight on. Those eyes had always given him the best fights. You're pretty good too, shouted Rappa gleefully as he continued to pound away. Ijiro gritted his teeth as he continued to harden his body to the fact his sharp-edged toes broke through his shoes, so he could grip the ground better. I won't back down, roared Ijiro in his mind. Midoriya hits harder than this. Bakugo blasts harder. His mind flashed back to the monster trio of 1A. It was a silent but unanimous agreement in one that Izuku, Katsuki, and Shoto were the strongest of them. But Ijiro wasn't willing to just look at their backs as they went ahead. He wanted to catch up and stand side by side with them. Never again, thought Ijiro as his mind flashed back to his indecisive weak-willed self back in middle school, where he was too afraid to do anything. I'll become the hero who can protect. I let Fat Gum take so much damage to buy time for me to get back up. I can't let him down. I can't let my classmates down. I promised her I'd come back, and if I lose, I won't be able to face her again. His mind flashed through images of the past, to his idol Crimson Riot, to his classmates facing against all odds, to Izuku and Katsuki standing firm against all for one despite being kidnapped, and finally, to Mina's face, when she made a request for him to come back. Rappa gleefully kept punching, bursting with happiness that such a manly spirit was standing firm against his barrage, shouting, "You're damn good, too. I knew you wouldn't give up so easily." Ijiro roared as he finally found a chance to launch a punch against Rappa, but before their fists could clash, a barrier suddenly formed between the two, nullifying the impact. "You ass," growled Rappa, looking over to Tengai in anger at the interruption of such a fight. "Of course, I'm putting up the barrier," replied Tengai nonchalantly. "Things done in vain should just fall in front of my defense." Scream. The screeching sound brought the attention of Rappa and Tengai back to Ijiro, before witnessing him clawing at the barrier, leaving sparks upon each clash. The sharpened edges of Ijiro's fingers seemed to leave marks on Tengai's barrier, that immediately restored itself after each clash. "Didn't I say it was fruitless?" said a smug Tengai. "Keep clawing away, but you'll never be able to shatter my defense." Tengai's smug grin grew larger when he saw Ijiro's unbreakable form fade away from his body, thinking it was over. Rappa, however, saw something else. True, the hardened skin and the monstrous look Ijiro had before faded, but Rappa had been focused specifically on Ijiro's right hand. It was still hardened unlike the rest of the body. In fact, it looked even sharper and harder than ever before. "Show me what you got," grinned Rappa, deciding not to tell Tengai. Mirio raised his right arm high up to the ceiling, and with a step and a roar, slashed down with a hardened knife hand strike. It was when Miro's slash was about to touch the barrier did Tengai notice the rather hard and sharp knife hand, but it was far too late. Upon impact, Miro's sword hand slash cut right through the barrier as if it was made of paper, splitting the barrier open. This was a new technique he learned to do after consulting with Izuku and Itsuka about his fighting style. Tengai could only watch dumbfounded as he felt like Miro's slash had cut through him as well as the barrier. Tengai could only breathe a sigh of relief when Miro fell to the floor, but he couldn't quite react when a rather thin fat gum stepped forward through the dust, with his fists held up high. "Looks like you vastly underestimated the kid," grinned Fat Gum. "Thanks to you lot, I've become a fine spear, but you've also misjudged him. He's proven he's not only a shield, but a sword that can cut through a path. There's only one reason for your defeat, and that reason is that you underestimated the hero named Red Riot and his chivalrous spirit." With all the attacks Fat Gum absorbed, he put them all into one single punch, and blasted it right at Rappa and Tengai. Tengai tried to put a barrier up while Rappa crossed his arms to protect himself, but the attack blasted right through any defense they could muster, sending them flying into the wall. "Nice job, Red Riot," grinned Fat Gum as he helped Jiro up. "Night Eye Group." Meanwhile, Katsuki was growling in annoyance as he blasted away another barrage of rocks aimed at the group. "Shitty coward. Come out and fight," barked Katsuki, tempted to go ahead. However, he stayed as Eraserhead had ordered him to stay with him. Irinka was currently focusing on Night Eye's group, but before that, he created several obstacles and detours to confuse Izuku, who was still kicking down walls to catch up to Mirio. "It's just two kids. Overhaul can take care of them easily," thought Irinka before noticing their little impromptu allies had arrived. With a grin, Irinka forcefully separated the group into 3 sections. "Be careful," warned Eraserhead as he surveyed his surroundings with Katsuki next to him. Due to the walls being thin enough for sound to travel through, the two could tell that Night Eye was with the policeman, while Rocklock was by himself. Suddenly, the two heard Rocklock yell out as if he was being attacked. "Out of the way," shouted Katsuki as he pointed his palms towards the wall. Eraserhead quickly nodded, allowing Katsuki to blow a hole in the wall to allow them access to Rocklock. Ducking under the rubble, the two found 2 identical Rocklocks, one which was on the ground unconscious and bleeding, while the other kneeled over him. "The fake suddenly appeared and attacked me. Be careful," warned the conscious Rocklock as he quickly stood up. "They got some new people around here somewhere." Eraserhead quickly went to inspect the unconscious Rocklock, before noting it was a knife wound. "Bakugo, are you alright?" asked Rocklock as he stood up to greet Katsuki. Katsuki merely grunted in reply as his eyes narrowed. Eraserhead immediately came to the conclusion that the real one was on the ground and turned around, just as the fake Rocklock suddenly drew out a knife from his pocket, intending to stab Katsuki. Before the fake Rocklock could do anything, Katsuki already had his hands up, palms pointing at the fake Rocklock with crackles of explosions already set. "Die!" shouted Katsuki as the fake Rocklock had to jump back to dodge, just in time for Eraserhead to activate his quirk. Gray slime suddenly burst apart from the fake Rocklock to reveal Toga Himiko as she backed away from Katsuki. Eraserhead quickly tried to capture her with his capture scarf, wrapping it around her body. "That's it for you, Toga Himiko," shouted Eraserhead as he pulled the scarf, but he underestimated how fast and agile Himiko could react despite being caught. Himiko grabbed the scarf, using it as a fulcrum as she flipped above Eraserhead, before fluidly trying to stab Eraserhead's back. However, as she was in midair, Katsuki's shoulder bashed into her, driving her away from Eraserhead. The two tumbled on the floor for a bit, while Eraserhead's capture scarf released Himiko. Eraserhead quickly tried to follow, only for Irinka to block his path by creating another wall. "Shit," cursed Eraserhead, staring at the wall before deciding to quickly treat Rocklock's wounds. He could only hope Katsuki would be alright. Katsuki and Himiko stared at each other for good, well despite the fact Himiko was currently naked. "Pervert," stated Himiko as she finally reacted, grabbing clothes and putting them on without any concerns that she was showcasing her body. "Exhibitionist," retorted Katsuki, "the hell are you doing here, spiky buntails? I thought the League of Villains weren't on good terms with the Yakuza. It's not to just see me, is it? Like I said, you'll have to try harder you want to be my woman." "Call me Himiko," pouted Himiko. "Stop calling me like that, I have a proper name. And how do you keep seeing through my transformations?" "I thought I told you," smirked Katsuki. "It doesn't matter what transformation you use. I can easily see through it all." Though the thought that Katsuki could see through her transformation scared her, it also gave her a sense of awe and arousal. "So, are you going to tell me or not?" asked Katsuki, only to shift his head to the left to dodge a syringe from Himiko. "You'll find out soon enough," grinned Himiko as she quickly jerked her syringe back while jumping back. "I'm sure you'll like it though." With that, another wall came crashing down to seal the path. Katsuki scoffed before blasting a hole in the wall behind him, opting to regroup with Eraserhead first, instead of chasing after Himiko. As he did so, his mind wondered about Himiko's words. Judging by her words, he immediately came to the conclusion that though the League of Villains were currently cooperating with the Yakuza, the League of Villains had their own agenda against them. Luckily for the two of them, Irinka hadn't been listening in on them, as he had been focused on Night Eye's group. His suspicions turned out to be correct when Irinka suddenly began to distort the whole room, revealing everyone while they heard someone screaming in rage. Katsuki's eyes and ears began to quickly work to pinpoint the screams. Soon, he locked onto the source, blasting himself forward until he reached a specific wall, dodging all the rubble. Die! Roared Katsuki as he sent a blast into the wall, creating a hole where Irinka had been hiding. With him now in plain sight, Eraser had immediately erased Irinka's quirk, sending him tumbling down to the ground. It didn't take long for Night Eye to knock Irinka unconscious, by throwing one of his hyper-dense stamp seals right into Irinka's face. Looks like we've been used, sighed Night Eye as he glanced over to where Twice and Himiko had been. We need to move and follow up on Lemillion and Deku. Rocklock ended up remaining behind with a few policemen to look over at Irinka, while the rest charged forward. Going back a few minutes after Mirio and Izuku separated from the group, Mirio quickly caught up to Chisaki, aka Overhaul, Eri, and his right-hand man, Hari Kurono, aka Chronostasis. You shouldn't have been able to reach here so quickly, mused Overhaul out loud. How did you get here? I took a shortcut, retorted Mirio. I'm here to rescue the child. I see, covering up for your coworker now that you know the situation, said Overhaul calmly. Back then, she pretended not to see anything. I didn't see her, so she must have been too ashamed to come. This girl doesn't want you to rescue her. To her, you're no hero. Mirio narrowed his eyes before replying, that's why I'm here. Overhaul scoffed before turning around, blatantly ignoring Mirio. I'm not getting through to you. Let me make it simpler, I'm telling you to die. Mirio was about to rush them before suddenly losing his sense of equilibrium. Looking up, he saw Todoro Sakaki hanging from the ceiling, clearly drinking alcohol, before theorizing his quirk was affecting him. Looking forward, he saw Shinimoto holding a gun, aiming to shoot him. Mirio quickly dodged the bullets, using his quirk, when Shin used his to force Mirio to tell him what his quirk exactly was. Shin tried to break Mirio's heart by making him doubt himself, but Mirio pulled through by sheer willpower, phasing through the wall. Ultimate move. Phantom Menace. Mirio phased and unphased through the wall, causing him to bounce around at speeds both Todoro and Shin couldn't even react to, only seeing a red blur, before both of them received a barrage of punches. Mirio continued forward, phasing into the ground just as Overhaul and Chronostasis turned around. Mirio suddenly appeared behind them, giving Overhaul a backhand that barely nicked Overhaul's face, as he moved back to dodge. In the same breath, he kicked Chronostasis' face, phasing his leg right through Eri, before solidifying it once more, as soon as his leg passed her body. Taking this chance, Mirio grabbed Eri, jumping away from the two. Eri began to panic, warning Mirio that Overhaul would kill him if he didn't leave now, but Mirio wasn't phased. Don't worry. I'm here now, and I won't let you suffer any longer. Deku is coming too, as promised, and he'd do the same as me. We'll become your heroes, declared Mirio. Overhaul slowly turned towards Mirio and Eri, the part where Mirio nicked his face breaking into hives. Eri, stated Overhaul slowly as he began to wipe his face, come back to me. Me, kill. You're the one that breaks people. That's how you were born. I always have to get my hands dirty because of your selfishness. Each and every action you take kills people. You curse. Bullshit. Shouted Mirio, how could you say that to your child? You're just passing the blame for your own actions. Oh, that story, hummed Overhaul as he kneeled down to the ground. I don't actually have any children. In an instant, Overhaul broke the ground into pieces before reconstructing it into spikes to attack Mirio and Eri. Mirio quickly lifted Eri up high, using his quirk to allow the spikes to phase right through his body. He has no regards for the girl, growled Mirio as he quickly tossed Eri back, phasing himself out of the spike before catching her. Even if I broke her, it has no consequences for me, stated Overhaul as he reconstructed the whole hallway. I can revive her easily. No matter what damages may incur, I can restore her to her original state. She's experienced it firsthand. You've got nowhere to escape. Overhaul had finished reconstructing the hallway into a dome with no exit. Even though Mirio could phase through it, he couldn't bring Eri with him, meaning he was trapped. What made it worse was that Chronostasis hadn't been completely knocked out as he got back up again with the gun in hand, making it 2v1. However, both Chronostasis and Overhaul underestimated just what it meant to be the number one in the big three of UA. Shortly after wrapping Eri within his cape, tearing it off to protect her, Mirio went on the offensive, phasing through the ground in all their attacks. The two found themselves being overwhelmed, unable to counterattack. Overhaul tried to aim for Eri, but Mirio already predicted his moves and punched right through his guard. Suddenly, Shin came crawling in through a small crack that Overhaul had somehow left open, though Shin could shove his upper torso through. Overhaul's eyes narrowed as his mind quickly formulated a plan. Grabbing the case he had hidden in his pocket, he threw the case at him. 5 special bullets were in the case, and inside them contained the most powerful drug that Overhaul had managed to create utilizing Eri. Inside the bullets contained the ability to completely eliminate a person's quirk. Shin quickly loaded a bullet into his gun, quickly aiming it at Mirio, before realizing it was a useless effort. Mirio would just phase through the shot, and worse, if he hit Overhaul, then it really would be over. How do I make sure I can hit him? Thought Shin before his eyes landed in Eri. Then, with a malicious grin, Shin aimed his gun at Eri, knowing the hero would definitely block the shot to protect her. Mirio saw Eri already flinching as she clenched her teeth, as if expecting to be hurt. Mirio knew it was a trap, but he didn't hesitate to fling himself to protect her. Even as he heard the bark of the gun, Mirio resisted the urge to phase. His hands gently touched Eri's head, causing her to look up to see a smiling Mirio. Just as Shin was about to pull the trigger, a crack in the wall right next to him appeared before a large boom could be heard. Parts of the wall came crashing down as Izuku came bursting through the wall, creating a hole by brute force. Izuku's eyes narrowed as he quickly took in the scene, looking to the side to see Shin was pointing a gun at Eri and Mirio. Realizing Mirio was protecting Eri with his own body and would inevitably take the shot, Izuku twisted his body and stretched his leg down right onto the gun. Shin fired his gun right at Mirio, just as Izuku's foot came crashing down onto the gun. The impact sent Shin's aim off, but also completely destroyed the gun. "Million, are you alright?" asked Izuku as he flipped backwards, kicking Shin in the head, knocking him unconscious before landing next to Mirio. "Midoriya," blinked Mirio in surprise. "More heroes. You're all pests that I can't get rid of," growled Overhaul as he quickly slammed his hand onto the ground. "Deku," warned Mirio, seeing Overhaul making his move. "Got it," nodded Izuku, understanding his warning as he grabbed Mirio's hand as he quickly grabbed Eri. Izuku pushed off the ground hard, sending him flying away from his original spot, dragging Mirio and Eri with him, as spikes suddenly formed where they had just been. "Sorry I'm late," grinned Izuku as they landed. "You're right on time," replied Mirio as the two faced Overhaul and Chronostasis, who just managed to push himself up, giving a quick explanation of Overhaul's quirk. "Why?" whispered Eri, "You'll just..." Izuku didn't let her finish as he took off his straw hat and gently placed it onto her head. Eri looked up in wonder, her eyes growing big as her hands clutched onto the hat. "I promised I'd be back, didn't I?" smiled Izuku, patting her head, "and now, there's no need to be afraid. Because we are here." Izuku and Mirio turned to face off their opponents, Izuku letting one for all spread all over his body. "I'll take Overhaul," exclaimed Izuku as he rushed towards Overhaul. Mirio nodded in agreement as he phased through the ground, shooting himself towards Chronostasis. "Cocky brat," shouted Overhaul as he slammed his hand onto the ground. However, despite creating spikes from underneath Izuku's feet, Overhaul couldn't get a lock onto Izuku's position. His footwork made it hard for Overhaul to catch him despite creating so many spikes. Izuku quickly jumped towards the ceiling, rebounding off it before spinning and landing an axe kick. Overhaul dodged to the side while sneering, "Your attack is so simple and straightforward compared to the other hero, that it's easy to dodge and counter." Overhaul quickly placed his hand on the ground, intending to impale Izuku from behind when he noticed that he couldn't do so. "I wasn't aiming just to hit," Izuku smirked. Overhaul quickly looked down in time to notice a huge piece of the ground he had been standing on had been lifted up in the air, meaning he could only manipulate the ground he was standing on, since it was no longer connected by a solid medium. Overhaul immediately tried to switch his target, but Izuku vanished in front of his eyes. Before Overhaul could react, the ground he had been standing on shattered into pieces as Izuku punched right through it, landing an uppercut against Overhaul. "As long as you can't touch the ground or anything else, your quirk is limited," said Izuku as he landed on one of the fragments of the boulder he had just shattered, that means in the air. Izuku pushed off it, landing another punch on Overhaul as he passed by him. Izuku began to bounce all around the fragments, punching and kicking Overhaul as he passed by, forcing him to be helpless in the air. "You're helpless," shouted Izuku. Chronostasis saw Overhaul's plight, but was unable to intervene due to Mirio completely whipping his butt. Mirio was too fast for him, predicting any of his attacks. "If I can just stop him, then I can change this round," thought Chronostasis as Mirio grabbed his ankles and flipped him into the air spinning. Chronostasis focused as he felt the world slow down, adrenaline pumping through his body as Mirio appeared in front of him, ready to punch him in midair. "Now, shorthand," shouted Chronostasis as an arrow came flying out from under his hood. The arrow hit Mirio, and phased right through him while Mirio smirked, having predicted that Chronostasis would have done such thing. Not only that, but he had positioned himself so Overhaul had been behind him, so Chrono's quirk hit Overhaul instead. While Overhaul stalled, Izuku took this chance to dropkick him right through Mirio, who had been expecting and phased through the body. Overhaul ended up slamming into Chronostasis, who was unable to do anything. Nebraska smash. Izuku cocked his arms, twisting it as he did so before throwing a corkscrew punch that smashed Overhaul and Chronostasis into the ground. Eri could only look up in awe and hope, as she witnessed the two heroes standing tall while Overhaul and Chronostasis were on the ground. We should have an hour before he can move again, according to our intelligence, said Mirio. We should use that time to get out of here with Eri and regroup with Night Eye and the others. Shouldn't we try to capture them too? Asked Izuku. Too risky. It's only us two, and we have to protect Eri as well, denied Mirio. Even though I'm confident we're stronger, they also underestimated us, especially Chisaki. His quirk is too dangerous. Plus, the farther we get Eri from Chisaki, the better. Izuku nodded as he lifted Eri up to his arms, who was still in shock for a while. Come on Eri, let's get out of here, smiled Izuku. The three barely made it to the hole Izuku had made when Katsuki, Eraserhead, and Night Eye appeared. Midoriya, are you alright? Asked Eraserhead quickly, noting Eri was in his arms. Lemillion, status, ordered Night Eye. Chisaki is down for the count, as is Chronostasis, saluted Mirio. We tricked Chronostasis into friendly fire, as he hit Chisaki with his quirk. According to the data, he said shorthand, so we think Chisaki is down for an hour. We were planning to get to you guys before time was up. Was the arrow from behind his head or the front? Demanded Night Eye, to which both Izuku and Mirio shrugged. Katsuki, who had been keeping his eye on Overhaul and the others, widened his eyes as he saw Chisaki suddenly moving his hands towards the ground. Watch out, he's moving. Warned Katsuki as he quickly let out a chain of explosions that crashed into a barrage of spikes. The reality was that Chronostasis had lied when he said shorthand to trick the heroes into thinking he was attacking with the hour hand when in reality, he had used the minute hand. Eraserhead curses Chisaki had created a wall to block his view. At the same time, Overhaul had forcefully brought Shin next to him in Chronostasis. I wouldn't let my plans be ruined by these heroes, growled Overhaul. Nimoto, you wouldn't want me to meet my end. I'm sure you would die for my sake. You as well, Kurono. Without hesitation, Overhaul disassembled Shin, Chronostasis, and himself, merging their bodies into himself. Soon, a monstrous-looking Overhaul with 6 arms and claws came forth, his mask melding into his face. With a roar, Overhaul placed his hand on the concrete wall had created, transforming it into several spikes that shot towards the group. Get her out of here, ordered Night Eye as they began to dodge the spikes. You three find a way to go up. Eraserhead and I will hold him off. Katsuki wanted to argue as he blew up several more spikes coming their way, but decided to obey, considering it was an order from the one sidekick hero to All Might. He did, however, make sure to unleash a large explosion that broke the cement wall that had been hiding Overhaul. With him visible now, Eraserhead quickly erased Overhaul's quirk, while Night Eye threw his hyper-dense seals at him. Though the seals hit, Overhaul shrugged them off due to his thickened skin that he had created. This won't be easy, muttered Night Eye as he readied himself with Eraserhead. Mirio led the front, followed by Izuku, who was carrying Eri, followed by Katsuki, who was acting as the rear guard. Do you think it's a good idea to leave them like this? Asked Izuku worriedly as he readjusted the shaking Eri in his arms. Honestly, I'm a little scared, but Night Eye knows what he's doing. I believe that with Eraserhead, the two of them will take down Chisaki, said Mirio confidently. The more important thing is to get Eri safely away from him. We can continue running down the corridors, but it might take a while to reach the exit. Then we blow this shithole. Grinned Katsuki as he pointed his palms up, create a straight path up back to the streets, and we can regroup with the police easily. That's a stupid and risky plan. Lectured Mirio. What if there are buildings, or worse, civilians up there? You'd be endangering their lives for a quick path. All the civilians were already evacuated before this raid, and we're right below a street right next to the Yakuza house. At most, we'll hit the corner of it, argued Katsuki. Mirio blinked, slightly, not believing that Katsuki was able to determine their location based on their position, and wanted to call Katsuki's bluff. However, a roar from the tunnels made him reconsider. I'll go verify first. Wait for my say-so, ordered Mirio as he quickly phased down for a sec before shooting himself up, phasing and unphasing through the walls to reach ground level. Katsuki and Izuku glanced at each other before both turning towards the hallway where they had left Night Eye and the others. Eri? Echoed Overhaul's voice down the corridor. Someone else is about to die because of you again. Is that what you want? Eri began to shake, hearing Overhaul's voice. Izuku responded by holding Eri tighter, trying to comfort her. Eri, echoed Overhaul's voice. Do you really think those heroes can do anything about the situation? You should know what you need to do. It's easier to hurt yourself than to have others get hurt for you. I'll go back, said Eri as she tried to wriggle her way out of Izuku's arms. If I go back, then everything will go back to the way it was before. No one will be hurt because of me. Eri-chan, no. Whispered Izuku as he held onto her. If you go back to him, you'll only suffer. But if I don't then you all will, whimpered Eri. Shut up brat. Roared Katsuki, causing both Eri and Izuku to flinch, Eri due to fear and Izuku, due to how brash she was being. We already came here to rescue you, and now you want to go back. Said Katsuki. You don't want to really go through all that shit do you? Tell me right now that you truly want to be experimented on like some sort of rat. I stammered Eri in slight fear, mostly because of how loud Katsuki was being. Tell us that you really want to go back, and we'll let you go. But if you don't want to be a pansy and want to actually live, then come with us. After all, I'm here. And I always win. Oh, and I suppose Deku here will help, declared Katsuki, adding Izuku as an afterthought. Though not to be as blunt as he is, trust us Eri, smiled Izuku, we're here to rescue you. We'll protect you and win. Before Eri could answer, steps could be heard rushing through the hallway. Seconds later, Overhaul could be seen walking down the corridor with 8 arms now. Based on his appearance, it was easy to deduce he had also taken Itadori as part of his mass. You can't believe these foolish heroes would be able to stop me from finding you, could you? Asked Overhaul from a mouth that had formed in one of his hands. What did you do to Night Eye and Eraserhead? Izuku shouted. Ah, those two, said Overhaul whimsically. Eraserhead's quirk is still somewhat useful for my research, so I kept him alive. As for the other. Inside the area that Overhaul had created to fight Mirio, Eraserhead was trapped in a block that Overhaul had managed to create when he had to blink. As for Night Eye, he was currently impaled to the wall by several spikes through his arms. The only reason he was still breathing and not having a spike through his vital organs was due to Eraserhead being able to erase Shisaki's quirk just in time to prevent that. Midoriya, Mirio, run. We won't be able to rescue Eri. I saw the future, where we failed, whispered Night Eye. Eri, come back, ordered Overhaul once more, relishing the fear in Eri's eyes. Can you not see? You heroes are unwanted and incapable of helping Eri. That's not for you to decide, asshole. Roared Katsuki as he held his gauntlet up, ready to blast Overhaul. Suddenly, the ceiling above them collapsed as the Ryukyu agency tackled a sized-up Rikita through the ground. Everyone, reinforcements have arrived, shouted Mirio as he dropped down. Incidentally, you were right on the dot, Bakugo. Lemillion, help Night Eye and Eraserhead, shouted Izuku. Overhaul trapped them to chase after us. You two go up and regroup with the rest of the police and heroes up there, ordered Ryukyu. We'll take it from here. Uraraka, Froppy, you two back them up. Izuku nodded as he pumped one for all into his legs and jumped towards the sky. Katsuki growled but followed up with a chain of explosions, launching himself up. Achako quickly lightened herself as Tsuyu grabbed her and began to leap upwards. All these heroes, muttered Overhaul in annoyance as he saw some more heroes and policemen starting to surround him. All this infection. I will purge it all. Overhaul then grabbed a syringe out of his pocket that he took out of Chronostasis's pocket before absorbing him in, and stabbed his arm neck with it. He was disgusted he had to use Trigger, but in a situation like this where his key component in wiping away quirks was getting away, he had no choice but to use it. Stop him, ordered Ryukyu as Nichira and a few other heroes used their long-range attacks to attack him. A rather huge dust cloud formed around Overhaul, leaving it unclear whether or not the attacks had landed on Overhaul. Ryukyu was the first one to notice with her dragon's eyes piercing through the cloud, waiting in shock as she yelled, "Defend yourselves." In an instant, spikes bloomed from the center, firing all around. Everyone quickly began to defend themselves by whatever means necessary, but in the end, all of them ended up incapacitated to a degree. Eri, roared Overhaul as he slammed his hand onto the ground, creating a pillar to shoot him up towards the ground floor, bringing Rikita with him. On the ground floor, Izuku and the others had just landed when they heard Overhaul scream. Looking down, they saw Overhaul rising towards them with rage in his eyes. Ichako and Tsuyu gasped in fear when they saw everybody else down below were incapacitated. Fuck off, roared Katsuki as he let out a barrage of explosions towards Overhaul, who blocked it with ease as he charged forward. He's not going to give up, growled Izuku. We'll probably have to fight him. Ichako, Tsuyu, can you take Eri? Bakugo and I will hold Overhaul off. Are you crazy in that state? We need to get some heavy firepower, shouted Ichako. There's no time, said Izuku. Who knows how much damage Overhaul will do if he's allowed to run rampantly. Make up your mind quickly, shouted Katsuki as he let loose a concentrated explosion at Overhaul, the AP shot. Overhaul used his quirk to reform his rising pillar into a shield, all while kicking off it, charging towards him. Suddenly, they saw an arm seemingly stretch far longer than they thought possible for Overhaul. It was then they realized Overhaul had reshaped himself once more to elongate his hands. Before the student heroes could even curse, the hand touched the ground they had been standing on. In an instant, spikes formed all around them. Izuku stamped the ground hard, destroying spikes in front of them. Katsuki was already in the air with his hands pointed to both sides, and let out explosions that destroyed the spikes coming from the sides. Ichako and Tsuyu, however, didn't have the raw firepower that Izuku and Katsuki naturally had. Despite their efforts with Ichako and Tsuyu grabbing cars while mentally apologizing to the owners of said vehicles and smashing them into the ground behind, they couldn't stop the spikes from forming. Not to mention they were already tired from having their vitality drained from their fight against Rikita. They all began evasive maneuvers, dodging the spikes the best they could. Izuku saw Ichako and Tsuyu slowly being cornered. With no choice and Eri still in his arms, Izuku stretched out his arms and fingers, wrapping them around their waist before tossing them up in the air. Kachan, shouted Izuku as he threw the two girls up in the air. Katsuki immediately knew what Izuku wanted, and so gritting his teeth, he blasted himself off, catching Ichako and Tsuyu, while using his explosions from his feet to sustain his momentum. Deku. Don't fucking die until I get back. Roared Katsuki as carried Tsuyu and Ichako away. Deku. Don't do this. Cried Ichako as Izuku's figure began to grow smaller as Katsuki carried them away. Kiro. Shouted Tsuyu as she tried to use her tongue to wrap around Izuku to carry him away, but Overhaul created a wall, blocking her tongue. Izuku winced, knowing he was going to get a bullocking from them later, but he quickly looked down to make sure Eri was still alright before he heard the sound of a gun going off. Izuku quickly whirled around, making sure Eri was behind him while raising his gauntlet-covered arms to protect his head and heart. He felt something hit his waist, but it didn't go through his body, but rather felt like something pierced into his body. Izuku looked down to see a red bullet case sticking into his waist, slowly pulling it out, and wondering what it was before he felt his connection to One for All cut off. To think I had to use this on a brat like you, drawled Overhaul as one of his hands held a gun, while another had an open case with 3 identical bullets, just like one Izuku had been hit with, but that strength and the ability to stretch is an annoyance that I will no longer tolerate, now and forever. The disease have been given quirks that let them dream, thinking they can actually become something is an illness of the mind. It's funny, with the power of the girl you were trying to save, everything you've worked for has been reduced to nothing. Overhaul slowly walked towards Izuku with a gazing look. With all that said and done, for some reason, your touch feels different from others. As if you were untouched by this disease called quirks. But that's nothing of concern. I will have you suffer for all this setback you have caused. You will beg to be released, but I will not release you until I am done with you. Perhaps I can make you a guinea pig for future testing with the Eri. Izuku's eyes narrowed as he stood up, unwilling to give up. His mind fortified with the decision he made. His body moving forward, his spirit showing that he was not broken. With a step forward, Izuku twisted his body as he threw an overhead punch. At the same moment, Mirio had managed to help Night Eye back up to the surface, after somehow managing to free Racerhead. Night Eye had insisted that Mirio bring him after Eri. Complying, Mirio managed to bring Night Eye back up to ground level, using his feet to phase through obstacles, and shoot them upwards. The two of them arrived just in time to see Izuku about to throw a punch against Overhaul, with Eri crying out for him to run. The two saw the red bullet casing near Izuku's body, and immediately realized that it was the quirk erasing bullet. Not only that, but from what they could, it was the one that could permanently erase a quirk from their interrogation on Arinka. No? There has to be something that can be done. One for All cannot fall here. Thought Mirio as he activated his quirk, reading the future. However, all he saw was Izuku being viciously disassembled before the film was cut off. All he could foresee was death. At the same moment, Katsuki broke through the barricade with Tsuyu and Ichako hovering behind him on a huge piece of rubble. When they saw Izuku throwing a punch at Overhaul, they couldn't help wondering why Izuku had chosen such a method of attack. Katsuki's eyes quickly took in the scene before noticing the red bullet casing next to Izuku. Shit, that erases quirks. Thought Katsuki, remembering when Sun Eater had been hit by such a thing, but does that work against Deku? Whatever it is, it can't be good. Deku. Roared Katsuki as he blasted forward, trying to stop Overhaul, his mind racing to think of something. A foolish attempt, stated Overhaul as 2 of his arms went forward to grab Izuku's arm, intending to dismantle Izuku into a bloody paste, and lorded over Eri that she was the one responsible for another death. Just before Overhaul made contact though, something happened. I will punch him. It doesn't matter what he does, my punch will go through. Screamed Izuku inside his mind. And as if responding to that will, Izuku's right arm turned obsidian black. As Night Eye kept watching the future, something completely unexpected happened, something he had never seen before. With one eye, he was watching the future, and with the other, he was watching the present. As soon as Izuku's right arm gained a black glow, the film reel of the future suddenly had a huge fracture in the middle. What is this? Blinked Night Eye in shock. He had never seen this happen to his quirk before. When Overhaul's hands touched Izuku's blackened skin, sparks came flying out, as if metal was grinding against metal, but Izuku's punch continued forward without any signs of being deconstructed. What the hell is this? Shouted Overhaul in disbelief. His quirk wasn't working properly against this blackened skin. He saw the change and pondered what it was, but ignored it in favor of disarming and killing Izuku. However, as soon as he made contact, every cell, every molecule, down to the basic quirk, refused to obey his command. It was as if Izuku's willpower was overpowering his quirk that had been enhanced by trigger. Overhaul. Roared Izuku as he pushed forward, ignoring everything else. As Izuku's fist brushed past Overhaul's arm, getting closer to his face, Night Eye saw his film reel develop more and more cracks, as milliseconds passed by with Izuku's fist getting closer to Overhaul's face. Impossible. Thought Overhaul before Izuku's punch smashed into his face. At the same moment, the film reel of the future Night Eye had been looking completely shattered before a new film reel took its place. The reel that had been cut short suddenly extended itself, showing a new future. As the punch landed, the ones witnessing it soared that as soon as Izuku's fist made contact with Overhaul's face, the color around them was blasted off, leaving it only black and white. Izuku roared as he followed through with his punch, smashing Overhaul off his feet, sending him flying. That color, that's the same color that Deku had when he tried to punch me, when my permeation somehow didn't work despite using it, muttered Mirio. How? Howled Overhaul as he managed to get back up, quickly using his quirk to dismantle the pain away. What sort of freak are you? Izuku merely glared at Overhaul before pulling his fist back, looking at his hands that slowly faded back to his regular skin. It doesn't matter, I merely underestimated you and was taken by a surprise factor, growled Overhaul. Perhaps an unintentional side effect of the drug, we'll have to study it more. But your original quirk is no launch. Overhaul trailed off as Izuku took a deep breath, while familiar red veins began to spread across Izuku's body once more. One for all, 100%. The connection to one for all returned, stronger than ever. The bullet that removed quirks worked by eliminating the quirk factors naturally in the human body, reverting a body back to before the quirk gene existed. However, Izuku's quirk was anything but natural. Combined with the devil fruit and the wills of the past users of one of all, the quirk erasing drug was easily driven out of Izuku's body. Impossible, shouted Overhaul in shock. No longer did he think Izuku was just some small-time snot-nosed brat. Now, he was the biggest obstacle to his future if Izuku could shrug off his ace in the hole. He had to be eliminated, studied perhaps to avoid such a situation again. Overhaul didn't hesitate as he disassembled himself and Yukita, assimilating his lackey into himself once more. This time he transformed into a huge monstrous form that towered even Ryukyu in her dragon form. You all don't know what Eri is fully capable of. Eri is able to rewind humans. Only I am able to fully use and control her. Eri rewinds humans, and everyone who touches her will be rewound to nothingness. The girl's quirk is a curse. Hand her over, as I am the only one that can stop her by disassembling her, roared Overhaul. Not happening, growled Izuku as he slammed his fist to the ground, getting into a horse stance. Eri has suffered under your care long enough. I won't let it continue any longer. Her quirk isn't a curse, it's a part of her own gift. That you would abuse it for your own greed and shift the blame on such a young girl is something that I won't stand for. Izuku bent his knees slightly, forcing his blood to pump down into his legs, before it raced through his whole body. His torso expanded slightly once more as his skin turned pink, with steam coming off his body. Combined with the electrical arcs from One For All, they began to sparkle even brighter. You don't understand the value of Eri's power, nor does she understand it herself, gloated Overhaul before bragging how through countless experiments, he extracted Eri's full power to its limits. To revert humans to a state before quirk existed, to extinguish the quirk factor and return them to normal. The power to destroy the natural world order that was built upon quirks, to purge the world of its disease. All while Izuku had managed to bundle Eri onto his back, asking her to hold on tight. You can't have Eri. You wouldn't be able to properly exploit her powers, roared Overhaul as he manipulated the surrounding areas, creating giant spikes to skewer them both. It was only a second later he noticed he had missed, and that Izuku was already underneath him. With a roar, Izuku kicked Overhaul high up into the air. Without pausing, Izuku jumped up, launching another uppercut at the beak, launching him further up and back. Izuku landed next to Ichako and Tsuyu, who was still floating on the large piece of rubble Ichako had used. Here, she'll be safer with you, said Izuku, passing Eri to Ichako and Tsuyu. Kiro, I'll take care of her. Suzuki is about the same age as her, said Tsuyu as she gently hugged Eri. Eri looked nervous, looking over to Tsuyu and Izuku, her hand gripping on Izuku's arms. You can trust them, smiled Izuku. I need you to make sure my hat is safe. I'll be wanting it back afterward. With that, Eri nodded as she let go, allowing Tsuyu to hold her. Incoming, shouted Katsuki as he pulled the pin on his gauntlet, firing a huge explosion that he had been storing up. The explosion destroyed the incoming hands that Overhaul had created to try to grab him. Izuku immediately followed up by jumping right after the explosion, throwing a punch that stretched and slammed into Overhaul's monstrous body once more. Every one of you is missing the big picture, roared Overhaul as he disassembled his body, changing into one he hoped could compete by power. I'm tearing this world down, this false framework down to build a truly fair world. You heroes are only seeing what's in front of you, never looking deeper to find the truth. Such a narrow-minded justice that shouldn't exist along with your foolish dreams. Overhaul threw a punch, only for Izuku to blast through it. Izuku had learned to propel himself forward just like All Might did with brute strength, and so he punched right through Overhaul's newly formed fists. Immediately, Izuku turned and stretched his leg, kicking Overhaul in the back with a thrust kick, not letting him get a chance to even turn. If I can't save a small girl in front of me who needs help, growled Izuku as he wound his fist back, then how can I call myself a hero? You claim to build a true world, but the reality is that you're just someone who's abusing a girl, and hoping to set yourself as a ruler. I won't let such injustice stand as long as I can fight. If I look away, then how can I be a hero that saves everyone? Overhaul quickly changed into his monstrous form once more to defend himself. Punchy smash. A torrent of punches came flying towards Overhaul, too fast for him to even attempt to catch one. Each punch tore away the dense flesh he had created to protect himself until his real body was exposed. No. I need to find some way to turn this around, thought Overhaul as he tried to think, though it was hard when he was being shredded to pieces. Izuku's last punch slammed into his face, sending him flying into the ground, creating a crater, while also sending his mask flying. I wouldn't lose, roared Overhaul as he used his quirk, creating several giant arms that sprouted from the ground. Normally such a task would be difficult even for his normal state, but considering he was desperate and also still under trigger, he created 5 giant arms. However, he didn't aim them at Izuku. Instead, he was aiming them at 5 different locations. They were at where several policemen were standing guard, the Yakuza building where all the Yakuza were being arrested, a hospital, Katsuki and the others, and finally Izuku. Let's see you save them all, hero, sneered Overhaul, aiming at Izuku's pride now. Izuku's eyes narrowed as his mind began to think of a way. The attacks were spread out, making it hard for Izuku to target them all. He only had 4 limbs, and there were 5 hands aiming to crush people. Suddenly, Yoichi from the depths of his mind from One for All whispered out to him, stretch one of your hands towards your explosive friend. I have an idea. Koch-chan, shouted Izuku as he stretched his arm towards Katsuki, passing by Overhaul's attack. Katsuki looked up as he was about to respond to Overhaul's attack, noticing Izuku's hand stretching towards him. Not knowing why, Katsuki raised his hands up, allowing Izuku to give him a high five. Instantly, Katsuki felt a well of energy surge through him, empowering him in his quirk. Orange lightning seemed to surround him, just as green lightning had surrounded Izuku. What the hell is this? Is this, One for All? Did Deku somehow pass that to me? And is it permanent or temporary? Thought Katsuki before shelving the thoughts away. He knew exactly why Izuku had done so, just not how. The biggest reason was due to Yoichi experimenting within One for All, before finding out how to transfer some of the energy that had been gathering within Izuku's body. Especially since One for All was already evolving, there was plenty of energy to spare, and so Yoichi, using his quirk of transferring quirks, managed to transfer some of it to Katsuki temporarily. It hadn't been the first time either. The first time was back when Izuku touched Toshinori's back during his fight against All for One, revitalizing One for All within Toshinori. I'll take care of 3 of them, shouted Katsuki, aiming his right hand towards the 3 closest hands Overhaul had created. Putting his left hand in front of his right palm, Katsuki aimed his AP shot and fired. Due to the influence of energy Katsuki had received, 3 huge explosions that were much bigger and faster than a fully loaded gauntlet, filled with his sweat rocketed towards the hands, instantly destroying the hands aimed for him, the civilian center, and Izuku. Izuku stretched his legs towards the remaining 2 with a sweep, destroying them before they had the chance to reach their targets. No. I will tear this world down apart, swore Overhaul. I will have the Yakuza rise up once more. Overhaul slammed his hand onto the ground once more, only for nothing to happen. What? Roared Overhaul as he repeatedly slammed his hand onto the ground before Mirio suddenly appeared in front of him, uppercutting him in the face. As Overhaul flew up, he saw Eraserhead had managed to escape the makeshift prison he had left him in and made it to the surface. With nothing blocking his view, Eraserhead deactivated Overhaul's quirk, making him helpless now. Overhaul noticed a shadow growing over him and looked up in time to see Izuku already in front of him, his right arm already retracting and spinning for a corkscrew punch. It's over, Overhaul, roared Izuku as he threw his fists forward. Once more, his fist and arm took an obsidian black color, as his fist slammed into Chisaki's face. The final punch slammed Chisaki into the ground, completely knocking him out. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.